Are you sometimes frustrated you can't get your kid to do what you want them to do and they're not doing it? We have a master educator here, Faige Kramer, and from Baltimore, and she's going to walk us through. She's got some awesome things that could revolutionize your day-to-day life. We want to know a little bit about what it means to be bringing out the best in your kid. What's like some of the really crucial things we need to, we go right deep very fast here. So go right on it.
Okay. So one of the things as a way of introduction, first of all, thank you for having me. It's really such an exciting thing to be on your show. I always think to myself that a happy child is a successful child. And the less stress and anxiety a child has, the more they're able to go beyond their comfort zone and really tap into talents and desires that they have and be an amazing, successful part of any community that they eventually become part of. And even part of society, as a high school kid can go beyond their comfort zone and do things that sometimes really surprise us as parents. But the less stress and anxiety a child has, and the more we bring out the best in them, really the most successful they become.
So can I ask you, because you've been teaching for many, many decades. You're the chair of the math department, right?
That's right. I run the math department in Baltimore High School.
Yeah. Okay. So good. So, I mean, you're taking these girls who are, forget about it. Like that's the most anxiety time in their entire life and the most stressful time, like whatever, and fitting in and all the things that go with that. So how do you as a educator, like, what's the secret? How do you know?
So one thing that I have to say is that as a teacher, I really see how what happens at home has a very strong effect on what happens outside the home. And things that we do in our home with our children, to our children, things that we say, things, the way we bring out the best in them. And we're going to talk about how to do that. But that has an effect in all areas of life. And I see that as a teacher in the classroom. And that's really the exciting part of everything that we do as parents, that when the kids go out, when the students and the children, whether it be even Bachrim, when they go out into yeshiva, into high school, they channel a lot of what they see at home in their day-to-day.
Okay, so we get, it's very important. We've got to do the 5 things. You're going to give us today 5 things. Okay. Now, by the way, Faige's dad is the very famous and awesome author and public speaker, Rabbi Faige Kramer. Okay, this is his daughter. You can see
love him.
Off the block. Okay.
Hi, Tom. We love you.
But the thing you have to understand, he's been so unbelievable supportive. Actually, he wrote on This Is Marriage Secrets, and where's his name? There it is. He wrote the forward. Anyway, thank you. Hello, done us worlds of good. But the reason I'm saying that is because he always starts his classes with, or lectures, the 5 things we're going to learn today are X, Y, Z. And then at the end, he says, the 5 things we learned are X. And that is like so brilliant. I wish I would have that talent. I tried it. I failed. But right now,
just so us math people, we're very organized. So it all works.
There you go. So, but the point I'm trying to say is she's got 5 tips she's going to teach you so that what she's saying, that a kid who is well comforted and comfortable and everything like that is going to do better all across the board in their life. Now she's going to give us the 5 ways to do that. So let's start with number 1.
Okay.
Okay.
So the first thing, and this is not, in any order. And also one thing I want to say before I even start of the 5 points, think about something like this. If I would pick a bouquet of flowers and I would go to a garden and pick 5 flowers and make a beautiful bouquet, and then I would ask you to do the same, both of our bouquets would be beautiful. But when you actually look at them, they'd be actually quite different. This talk that we're having, these are insights. These are ideas. This is not the definitive guide on how to bring out the best in your children. These are ideas. These are things that I've found that worked. You have to take what resonates with you, that works with your personality. These are things to get the juices flowing, to kind of think like, oh, what would I do? Could I do that? And then some things you might say, I can't do that. But then the other thing you say, oh, I could do that. So again, it's not the definitive guide. It's just some insights.
Okay. Right.
So let's start with one of the things that I am so passionate about, and anybody who knows me is gonna be nodding their head along with me. The first point is know what your children love and tap into that and know what they're good at and find venues to give them opportunities to tap into those talents and have those opportunities. So that's like a general idea, but I have like specific examples of different things that parents who I respect a lot have done. Some things that I've done, my friends. There's a lot to talk about here. So Leah Richeimer mentioned my father. So we're going to definitely start with him because he did a fabulous job, hopefully raising all of us. Well, I'm one of five. So I can tell you from my siblings, they're very well raised, and my mother as well. My mother's an educator, by the way. She's an amazing teacher at Sheva High School. So she was just as much a part of our education. And I'll talk about her in this point as well. So let's start with something that my father did. Us grown children, we loved sports and music, and we were always involved. We were quite an energetic crew, let's just say. But I have a sister who didn't like sports, and she didn't want to be playing basketball and football on a Friday afternoon. She loved cooking and baking. And what my father did is he subscribed and bought a subscription to this magazine called Chocolatier. And
I need that. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. It's a fabulous magazine. And actually, I've actually seen it, obviously, because it came to my house once a month. And I often thought to myself, who buys this? Like, who subscribes to a magazine full of, chocolate recipes and all that, what we call pachka recipes, right? Things that take so long to make. Well, she loved this magazine. She used to read it. Fast forward to today. Her cooking is always gourmet. Everyone knows that. And not only that, she has 2 married children. And when they recently had a Shabbos that they were all together, Matzah Shabbos, they did this activity called Chopped, where, it's they buy a lot of foods and there's competition. Anyway, she had a food competition. Trust me, the Kramers never have food competition. Okay. We make food and we eat it. But she really, think about that. 30 years later, she's still into food. Not only that, her daughter is featured on kosher.com. The love of food and baking that was honed from so long ago. She felt good about it. She loved it. And I actually think, my husband often says that sometimes when we tap into these things, our children exceed our expectations. They're better than we think. Did my father know that his granddaughter is going to be on kosher.com? No, there's no way. But here's what he did know. He saw his daughter loved something and went out and did something because of it.
Wow. We're getting flooded with questions here, whatever. I think I'll take the first one right now. But first of all, just so I understand, how do you find, how do you tap into, I don't know how Rabbi saw that his daughter, that would be click with her. Well, how do you know?
Leah, we know.
Leah, you just took the first question, because literally Hani was asking, how does a parent fine tune what each kid, sometimes you're just happy that they're playing or doing their things. How do you know that one kid, let's say, it wants something different than another one, or how does a parent notice those types of things?
So one of the things that, I love to say, people make fun of me all the time, how I'm obsessed with my children. You either watch what they talk about, you watch what they're interested in, you talk to them, you see, everybody cooks and bakes in their kitchen. I had no interest in making challah, and I loved being on the piano. I loved music, and I loved singing. So my parents saw that I loved that. I think most parents really know what their kids love and what they're good at. Even something like my musical talent, which, that comes, from my father's side. My father's sisters, sing beautifully. But I have to tell you something very interesting. I loved playing piano. I was head of every single choir. My mother came to every single one of my performances where either I was in it or I was head of choir. And this is a really funny story. I was head of so many choirs, okay? Baruch Hashem, I loved the leading. I loved making up harmonies. My mother came to every single one of my performances, almost like it was normal. She came, she cheered. She always had such a nice compliment to say afterwards. I don't know how she came up with a different compliment every time, but she did. In any case, when I went to Eretz Yisrael to seminary, this is a true story, I was head of the choir in Erev Shirah. And we did so many performances. I know this sounds crazy, but as an 18-year-old girl, I called up my mother and I said, "Mar, are you coming? Are you coming to Israel?" At that point, I don't think I called it Israel. I called it Eretz Yisrael. "Are you coming to Eretz Yisrael to watch my choir?" And she had already come earlier in the year for Sukkot. So I laugh at it now. I really thought like, oh, my mother's coming to Eretz Yisrael for my choir. Now, she didn't, of course, and that's okay. We loved her. We love you anyway, Ma. But I'm just saying, like, she didn't. But think about what that meant. She really honed in and was so a part of her cheering squad. And again, that didn't cost money. You see, some things cost money and some things don't. It doesn't cost money to cheer on your daughter in a nice, talented way. Come to the dance. You know, when my daughter now is in production in high school, I go to both performances. I know she does it twice. I go to every one. And I did that with my older daughter as well. And one of the things is I make some excuse like maybe one night will be better than the other. And I want to be there for when you do your acting or you're singing really well or you're dancing. But I want to give that message. My sons will laugh at the fact that I used to go to all their Little League games on Sunday. I did. I went to every single one. My mother also did. She went to my brother's Little League games. Cheering on your kids. Like wow. That's okay. So
okay. So wait, Leah, I have to interject because it's interesting from my own personal life. When my husband and I got married, one of the things that he said to me and he sort of made me promise was that even when we have kids, I'm never going to put them ahead of him. You know, like he's always going to be the number one. And you know how quickly that lasted, Leah? Like until the first kick, until the first kick that I felt from the baby in my stomach, I'm like, number one, honey, you're like number two right now. 97. Bottom line is, then I had my children, and obviously, and everything was about them. And then I realized I do have to make the shift back to my husband. And at that point, sometimes you feel torn about like you want to go and do things for your kids and you want to be involved, but at what point are you sacrificing your marriage sometimes for like trying to accommodate, especially when you have multiple kids?
So I'm really glad you brought this up because we have a lot of shows on this exact. We have one called "The Screaming Baby Comes First," right? So this is actually one I'll take the answer this one for you, just because it's a very.
And then I want to add in my little 2 cents.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, wait. You go first. That's fine. That's fine.
I just have a small idea. Involve your kids in cheering on your husband. Every husband has their things that they're, excited about. And, my husband makes videos, and let's watch Tati's video together. Let's listen if he's practicing for davening for the Amid and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Let's listen to it together. In other words, there's nothing, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Oh my God.
That's a brilliant, yummy answer to it. But also you have to think about, okay, it's your husband says, okay, I want to go buy a car. I want you to come test drive it with me. Or I want you, Sunday afternoon, I want to buy a barbecue and, I want you to come with. And it's exactly the same time when the Little League game is. What do you do? So we have many sources. Again, the Ladies Talk Show is about bringing forth the 3,000-year-old bulletproof track record of our shalom bayis Masorah, our peace in the home, traditions. So what you need, for the most part, our sources all say to put your husband number one. And if your kid's screaming and your husband needs you, which do you do? If there's an emergency, you go take care of the kid. If there isn't, you don't. Go watch that show and you will see, there's a whole explanation of it with the sources included. But the point is, for those of you who are listening right now, for the most part, you put your husband first and say, okay, let's do the car. I'm happy to do the car. It happens to be at the same time as Moshe's the Little League game. Would it be okay instead of going with you at 1:00? Would 3:00 be okay? Exactly. No, you only can do it at 1. Okay, we'll do it at 1. I'll miss the game. That you do it. We do have a source. You miss the game.
Yeah,
for your husband.
My kids always used to know. By the way, and Leah, to support what you're saying, if you really go to most games, my kids always used to make fun of me. Like, there's always one game that mommy misses. And that was, we used to go to the Torah Masorah convention in the spring times. And the Sunday of the weekend of the Torah Masorah convention, we missed that Little League game. But when you go to every other game, it's okay. Their cup is filled. They feel that your dedication is there and they can be flexible to give you up for that time that's not flexible.
And the other, to bookend to exactly what you're saying, this is good. The bookend to what you're saying is the fact that if you are all the time putting your husband a priority, but this one time you watch the Little League game instead of doing what he needs you to do or wants you to do or whatever, your husband's cup is filled. He feels like the man. He feels respected. He feels honored. He feels like he's got the number one spot, as he should. There's like 27 sources that your husband comes first. Okay, hard to deal with with the baby kicking in your stomach, as Sarit says. I do want to go tag on to what you talked about. How the question the person brought up was, how do you figure out what your kid, what their good spot is? So I actually had a student whose kid was just kind of a little bit lost, wasn't doing well in school, wasn't really social, wasn't, didn't at home, wasn't good at the games or activities that they were doing, really didn't excel at everything. So you know what I told her? I said, try everything. So she got a piano lesson. She started piano lessons. Fail. I don't remember all the things. It was about 7 years ago, so I can't remember all the things, but she tried, calligraphy. She got him all this pen set to become a sofer, to, do the beautiful lettering, whatever. He, got black all over his hands. He wasn't in it. Fail. Yeah,
but Leah, our children are extensions of us. Look into what you love and what your talent is, and then see maybe your child has one of those talents.
Well, let me tell you this hysterical answer to what ended up happening. She tried literally like 10 or 20 things, I think, drawing and whatever, and she got tutors and she tried everything. You won't believe what she ended up doing for this kid. Wow. She ended up hiring a clown who came to the house and taught the boy, how to make balloon animals with, little rabbit, a little bunny, a little whatever, what else, like eyeglass thing, all kinds of things that he was making, cats and dogs and lions and elephants and with 14 different balloons. Right. He became an expert at this, and he actually ended up getting hired at parties. I think they paid him, $15 to be there for the 3 hours or whatever. He ended up, he came out of his shell by becoming the balloon guy and having lines of kids waiting at parties for him, for his unique talent. It really brought out the best of him. So just keep trying things. You will get there. Let's go to number 2, or we're going to never get moved.
So I want to just go back to step 1 for a second. We didn't tap into some of our audience members have, the gamut of types of children. So there are in the yeshiva system, right, what we call like our yeshivish kids, right? And then like, what do you do for them? They're in yeshiva the whole time. So something that I know somebody that did this, he bought a laptop for his son, obviously filtered and all of that. And his son was able to type up his chidushim on the laptop. So a boy who is very good at learning and loves that, why do we have to wait till he's 27 to get a job as a Rebbe? Let him type up his chidushim on a laptop. So there's so many different things. And then you'd be surprised. Again, my husband kept on telling me this, like in different things that we were talking about, our different children and different children that we know. He said, remember this situation? They exceed our expectations. The first time, I have a son who is musically talented, surprise. And we let him have music lessons, like voice lessons. The first time my husband says that he went to hear him sing at a wedding, we were flabbergasted. Like, wow, he's that good? And of course he is, because he took the voice lessons and he ran with it and he loved it. And yes, he is that good. So and of course, then we start with, what my mother used to say to me, right? So then I do to the next generation. You are amazing. I love the harmony, like a specific compliment. You could always say to your child, you're amazing. After a while, they're not going to believe it. Meaning you have to get something specific, that trill, that harmony, the way you reach the upper notes, like whatever you're going to compliment your child on, make it specific so it's satisfying.
This is awesome. We got another question, then we're going to go on to number 2. Go ahead.
Okay. So Shandy is asking, at what point when you're giving to your child, does it become sort of a parent sacrificing themselves in the process? Because she's as she's writing, she wanted to provide for her child everything that she can. And then at some point she sort of lost herself in the shuffle.
You mean she got too busy? How do you manage your time?
She was like, meaning like everything was about how could she make this child grow and thrive and be the best they could be. And when it's one child, it's one thing, but then you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number you have, you're suddenly being pulled from all ends. And then it felt like she didn't have time for herself at all.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. Making time for self-care is super important. And people who know my life, I always say, like, I have 3 days. I have the day in the morning before I go to work where I'm doing things in the house, appointments. And then I have a second day in school where I run the math department and I teach 3 classes from 12 to 4:30. And then I come home at 4:30 and my first tutoring job is at 5 and I tutor all evening. But there's 2 things I want to say to that. One, for 1 hour in the morning, I work out. I love working out and I take that time for myself. And that is something that's so important. And one thing that I actually said to somebody yesterday was when my nights are so busy and I know I have a hard day at work, I keep my morning light. There has to be a balance. You have to have that time. And I'll tell you something interesting. Everyone knows I don't tutor between 6:30 and 7. You know what I'm doing then? I'm sitting with my 16-year-old daughter and we have supper together. No phones. We sit down and now that's a half-hour supper. We're not eating for a half hour. Otherwise we'd look like a balloon. We're eating for 10 minutes, but we're talking. And you know what? Sometimes those 30 minutes are not 30 minutes. Sometimes the 30 minutes is 20 minutes because different things happen, but that's okay. She really feels like I know that 6:30 to 7, my mother's not tutoring. I also don't tutor on Motzei Shabbos in case my husband has a little bit of time. Like you say, we have to make time. He knows that's a time that he can spend with me. Sunday evenings, I don't tutor. So here's the thing. You have to get self-care, but the answer to the question is also don't try to give one kid so many things. You want to give, things to all the children, but also include all the children in cheering on the others. I have a daughter who works for my husband. She makes videos. She is outstanding. We all love to watch her videos. We all love to, it's just, if you involve everybody in the excitement part of it, then they feel satisfied and you'd be surprised how you have time for a lot more than you think you do.
That's fantastic. Okay, let's go on to number 2. It's very good. I'm totally with you. And
okay,
everybody can see this is going to bring out the best in a kid. You can just taste it. You know what I'm saying? It's going to make them thrilled about something. Okay, good.
Okay. So one of the things that I notice as a teacher, and this comes from a teacher's perspective, and Leah, can I see you? I think Leah got lost. So I'm just going to continue talking. One of the things that I notice as a teacher is that a child's relationship with both parents is so healthy. And obviously not everybody, lives with 2 parents, but I feel like the balance of having the two different types of personalities that come along with men and women are so beneficial. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you have a mother that's so emotional and you have the father, which is very level-headed, but it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes the father could be the father who hugs their kids and is so emotional, and you have the mother who's very level-headed. However, both parts of that are really important to a very healthy and balanced relationship. And as a teacher, I really see that. And we have kids, all the time who come from families with one parent homes, and that's okay. Leah's coming on now. Hi, Leah.
Going on? Am I back on?
Yes.
Okay, fine. That was very strange. Okay, Adam, you know what's going on. Hello.
So I continued talking while you were off.
That's good. That was perfect. I don't know what happened. Okay.
Yeah, by the way, we're getting lots of hearts. So whatever you said was great. Okay. There's a bunch of hearts on Instagram are coming through.
Okay, so you covered point number 2. I'm
going to continue. I'm halfway through.
Okay, fantastic.
So one of the things that's important, what I've said so far, Leah, was that it's important to have a relationship with both sets of parents that bring to the table the emotional part and the cerebral part. And you really need both of it. But we all know that there are many children that come from single parent homes, and that's okay. What you want to think about if you're a single parent or if you come from a single parent home is where to get that balance of a relationship. It could be a Rebbe, it could be a teacher, it could be a mentor, but the point is the balance, and what I said is that it's not specific gender-wise in terms of sometimes you have the mother who's super emotional and the father that's very cerebral and level-headed, but sometimes it's reversed. Sometimes you have the father who gives the kids tons of hugs, but you have the mother who, is more level-headed. But one thing that I do notice as a teacher is we see all this when PTA comes, and anybody who knows me is going to just be totally laughing right now because I am very passionate about PTA. And we all know that the Kramers have never missed a PTA in over 20 years, both parents. 2. Now, one PTA, my husband was not at. He was in Chicago because I had not put it in his calendar, and he was on speakerphone. So, besides that one time,
but my husband you're saying parent-teacher meetings, not the PTA planning meetings.
That's right, not orientation, PTA conferences. And here's what it says. Twofold. It shows the child that you care about what he or she is doing every day from 8:30 in the morning till 4 or 5 at night. And that says worlds to them. And it doesn't cost money. All it does is it's showing them you care. You're validating. You're validating what they're doing. And that's what they're doing all day. They are students. And then as a teacher, you really see the balance. You see who's the emotional one, who's the cerebral one. And it's so beneficial to really give that message. And, people know all the time that my husband will say, I'm not sure why I like going to PTA, but after I go, I see how valuable it is. Like I see how valued it is and I see how valuable it is. And he often says, my husband will say like, I really didn't want to go, but I see it was important.
Wow, it's fantastic. So you're saying that it's a team, and
yes.
Finish what you were saying about the single parent because
we know that there are many single parent homes, and that's okay. The balance of the personalities, like the emotional and the level-headed cerebral type, you can get that whatever personality you are as the parent. Have somebody else in that child's life, a Rebbe, a mentor, a teacher who can give that part of it so that the child is well balanced. We see that in school. I often say the high school girls that have amazing relationships with their father, they're the most well balanced girls, and they can deal with things that maybe some other students can't. So I think that it's really important for fathers to have relationships with their child. And I will say something interesting. My father always talks about, the hour, like spending an hour with your child. In this day and age, it doesn't have to be an hour. It could be 15 minutes, but no phones, no technology. Don't get distracted. We know that there's so many, it's so easy to get distracted these days. If you focus on the child, and I could just say from experience, my husband travels a lot. I spoke to my friend last night whose husband is a caterer, and her husband is really out most nights, but either on the weekends or when they come home before he goes to an event or something like that, he takes the time to spend with their children and just focus time of making them feel important.
Okay, so go ahead. You can come with the next question. Go. I see she's flagging me down.
Okay, yeah, no, because, so actually Jay Miller actually said, thanks for talking about single parent homes. This is on Instagram, so important. So glad that we added, because I feel like there are today so many people where it can't just be the father and the mother. Hani on Facebook is asking, my daughter loves baking and wants to learn. Unfortunately, I'm not amazing in the kitchen. How can I tap into this for my daughter? I don't know where to start.
Good. Great question. First of all, we love the fact that baking is something that she can do now. And if she becomes good at it and she loves it, she can apply it in so many ways, whether it be making things for her friends, for their simchos, etc. So for me, I would start with two things. One, kosher.com. They didn't pay me to say this, but you have many websites of Yiddish websites where they have good recipes and things like that. And she can start by doing that. There are many magazines that have cooking sections in their weekly magazines. You can, subscribe to one of those. And I think more importantly, like, let's say this is what I would do if my child loved to bake. Before Yantif, about 3 or 4 weeks before Yantif, I would sit down with her and say, what would you love to make? Would you love to make a fancy dessert? Would you love to make a fancy side dish? And then while she's in school, I'll go buy the ingredients. We'll get the recipe, and then I'll validate her love of baking by buying the ingredients. And then, of course, as we all know, when you bring it out, let's say her daughter's name is Sarala. Everyone should know Sarala made this. And, my family knows this very much. Like when we bring out things, if somebody made something, we say who made it. And we can laugh about it now. But when the kids were little, if somebody made something and we made a big deal about it, the child felt great. And who doesn't? So that's what I would do. Where do you start? Start by Yantif, Shabbos, something like that, and tap into it and just go all out of being excited about it.
Totally got it. Hold on. Sarit, you need to mute. We keep hearing strange noises. Sorry, I'm having a hard time. This is a technical. Okay. Oh, that was good. Whatever just happened was good. Okay, so fine. Did that answer the question to that lady? Hannah, whatever her name is?
Yes, I think so. And she actually also said, also my kids have a few talents. How do we focus or pinpoint what to focus on and embrace?
Okay, it's a very good question. I think that just like when a baby is crying and you try to put in the pacifier, but it doesn't work, you don't keep on trying the pacifier. You try a bottle, you try to burp them. You go from one thing to the next, but in a pretty fast way. Don't keep on trying one thing. I love the example that you gave, Leah, with the boy who eventually, did the balloons. One thing that's really important is to be open to variety. Like the girl who, the lady who gives her daughter piano lessons, it might work, but it might not. And that's okay. Go to the next thing. So you kind of try different things. We all know that parenting is a little bit of trial and error, but one thing that we really want to communicate to our children is we believe in them, and whatever they're going to do, we are their biggest advocates and cheering squad.
Okay, let's go to the next one. We have a lot to cover in a little time. Okay, so
good.
Number 3.
Okay, number 3. So I don't know if I made this up or I read it somewhere. I don't remember if I read it anywhere. So forgive me if you've seen this before. But one of the things that I've told my children a lot, and people who know me will certainly recognize this, is fair does not mean equal. And at the end of the day, a child needs to feel that life is somewhat fair, but it doesn't have to be equal. And, recently, I did something for one of my children that I had never done for my other children. But so it wasn't equal. And one of my kids made some comment like, oh, I never flew to Florida for a concert. And she's the only one home and she loves to sing. And there was a women's concert and I flew her there and we actually cashed in some points. So it was not expensive. And I have a sister-in-law who's there. So it all worked out. And she loved it. And, one of my other kids made some funny comment. He was not insulted at all. He definitely has his cup filled, but it was the type of thing like, oh, fair doesn't mean equal. Okay. But something fascinating that, and this person told me I can tell this story, is I have a friend who has a child who has autism. And in preparing for this talk, I was going over some of my points with her, and she told me her son who has autism is 16, and she has another daughter after that who's 14 or 13. In any case, she recently was struggling on whether to get him WhatsApp or not. And what she told me was, for him, the social aspect of WhatsApp was something that she wanted him to have. But for her daughter, who is, in a regular Beis Yaakov and is, I don't want to say she's normal. That's not the opposite of autism at all. So I want to just say she
was social.
Typical.
She was social.
Right.
Yeah.
Socially typical, right? She also wants WhatsApp. And my friend was telling me that she is not letting her have WhatsApp. And the interesting thing is we were together. I wasn't talking to her on the phone. I was talking to her in person. And her daughter, who I love, and her daughter is 13, super mature. And her daughter's listening to her mother say how for her son, she wants to get WhatsApp because the social aspect is so important for him. And for her, she wants her to be social in person and communicate and not be on WhatsApp. Anyway, so she's telling me this, and the daughter looks at me and she says, it stinks. And I'm like, yeah, it does. It does stink. But I said, but can you see that really is fair? It's not equal. And she's like, oh yeah, it's totally fair, but it stinks. So what I want to say is, it's okay for children to say, you know what, I would have loved to have that, but I get that I can't. Now, this girl happens to be super mature, and maybe having that type of sibling, makes her that way. But I was so impressed because that's really the crux of it. The mother has really successfully communicated that fair doesn't mean equal.
It's fabulous. Okay, we're going to take one question. I want to go to the next point. We're not going to finish by the time. Go.
It's okay.
Okay, so Shandy is saying, I guess from before when Faige was talking about the different things that you can, hone in on a child's talents and how you can help them reach those talents. She was saying, yes, but that can be a fortune, especially with tuition. It adds up so fast. So what does a parent do if they want to give, like the child, let's say, is really talented and wants art lessons, but art lessons are a fortune. So how does the child help how does the parent help the child do their talent without it obviously costing them an arm and a leg?
First of all, I love that question. I'll tell you why. I have a friend who I was talking to this morning, actually, and we were talking about this, and I said to her, "Can I try some stuff on you? I want to say some things and see what you think." And so I said this point, and this was the exact question that she asked me this morning. And so when I answered her, she said, "Okay, that would satisfy me." So I'm going to try the same answer that I answered her. So here's what I answered. It is true that some talents to hone in on are more expensive than other. I personally remember when I had to pay for some tutoring, some melamed type of help, I had to personally stop giving my daughter piano lessons because I couldn't do both. And I explained to my daughter that we were going to have to stop piano lessons because this, child needed that. Baruch Hashem, she understood, and I'm so blessed and lucky that we have a close relationship and that, she understood. But I will say that the answer I would give is to prioritize. We have to prioritize what we're spending money on. And I'll tell you something interesting that the Kramers do, the Baltimore Kramers, we have a little bit more of a simple food plan, or we're not buying, expensive things. When my kids were little, I can't say for now, because now I only have, one kid who lives at home, and then my other two are in yeshiva, and I have two marrieds. But my point is that when I have 5 kids at home, we kept life so simple so that I can figure out how to come up with it. And I will tell you that it's not easy. And as a math person, I do all the finances in my house. So I know I really relate to the struggle of how to make ends meet. We're all just trying to get to the end of the month. We are. And I know what that means. But there are ways, and you have to come up with it on your own. What I'm going to tell you is not necessarily going to be perfect for you, but you will come up with how to prioritize what to spend money on and what not to. But there's no question that your question is real and valid. And we're just all trying to get to the end of the month. We all are.
The other thing, though, about you could do is if, let's say you have a friend who is a great artist,
Right.
And let's say, but she loves homemade challah, but she doesn't make it, she just doesn't have the time. She's always busy teaching her art classes. You could say, I'll make you challahs every week if you, teach, half an hour, 10, and I know you go by the hour, teach 10 minutes with my kids. I'll set them up, whatever. You can trade things like that. We did this a lot with babysitters in our community where, people who couldn't afford babysitting because it's quite expensive.
Sure.
It's gotten worse, crazy. Not when I was babysitting, but that's another story. But, it's very expensive. So you'd watch their kids and then they'd watch yours, you know what I'm saying? Like you trade off. So it could be, you can just really, really have to get yourself creative to try and figure out how you might be able to skin the cat in a way that doesn't,
Yeah. And that's really,
by the way, Leah, Lisa Sugarman is on. Her kids are sick. That's why she's home and on. But Lisa, we love you.
Yeah.
Remember her little baby Miriam Khana started out with us. So so she actually wrote in on Instagram, love hearing more about parenting here as a parent and educator. So glad that we were able to add the parenting piece. But she said that there's lots of free YouTube videos to cultivate talents. So today, you really can find a lot of stuff online.
Right, and you just have to be careful because they self-populate after the show ends with not so good stuff sometimes. Not
so social media, depending on your level of in our world, we say like yeshivish, right? Like depending on your level of exposure, some parents are going to be okay with kids learning things on YouTube and some parents won't. But the bottom line is we're all saying the same thing. Creativity, make it prioritize. And it's it's a real concern, but we know parents can do it.
Okay, get to number 4, because this was one of my favorites. I thought this was awesome. And okay, you're going to hear
giving a child responsibility.
Yeah, but leading to accountability, you said. I just think that's just okay. So explain.
Okay. So my point 4 is give a child responsibility, and that leads to accountability. So we know that giving a child jobs, washing dishes. Want to hear something really funny about the Crone home? We used to have my siblings will not believe that I remember this, but we do. My father used to have like a chart on the refrigerator, okay? And it was on it, it said wash a dish, which is in Yiddish, like washing the dishes, and drying. So he just made up a word, vish a dish. So my siblings will remember, oh my gosh, wash a dish, vish a dish. Every night we had different children who had to wash the dishes, dry the dishes, etc. Now, every night also somebody got a free, meaning one child did not have to do jobs for that night after supper. And that's okay. But the point is that we give them responsibility. And one of the things that my husband actually added to this is that my husband does videos, as you know, and my older daughter started doing this when she was in about 10th or 11th grade. And we really saw that she was talented and she was creative. And people started asking her to do videos. And my husband was very steadfast that she take money for it. And at the time, I remember saying to him, really? Like, she's only in 10th grade. Like, maybe she shouldn't take money because maybe it's not going to be as professional as you. I don't know. And he said, why don't you let her take just $50? Is 75, just something small. Here's why. If a child takes money for something, they have to see it through to the end. They feel accountable. And when somebody feels accountable and then they see it through the end, the child feels so successful and responsible, and they are.
So you mean if they didn't take money, he thought that they would just sort of, well, I couldn't show up, sorry, or
right, I couldn't finish it, I was busy, I had a test. But if you take money for something, then you have to see it to the end.
So how does accountability, the whole show is about bringing out the best in your child. How does accountability create that in our children?
So when they finish something, they feel amazing. We all know that when we make supper and it comes out good, or we do something, or Leah, when you make a show and it comes out amazing, don't you feel great? You feel very satisfied. So children have that too, from a young age, even to an older age. When we finish something and we accomplish something, we feel great. So here's the thing. Let's say Friday afternoon jobs. I know that my son who's in yeshiva, he's going to laugh if he watches this, but he comes home on Friday afternoon. It is his job to unload the dishwasher. Small thing. But when I come down and the dishwasher is unloaded, not 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, I will say, great job. Thanks for unloading the dishwasher. You did a great job. And that's a small little nothing. But when we have bigger things, we know that our kids are going to accomplish even more as they grow older. The compliments at the end, and again, something specific, something that they know that you're really paying attention. So great job is fantastic, but then it's got to go further. I love how you put away all the platters in a straight line in the cabinet. Something really specific, and that accountability and responsibility leads to the child feeling you get them. That's really it, and then that's how you bring out the best in them, and they're like you said, the cup is filled.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, we're going to take one question, then we'll go to number 5. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Now, okay, so somebody is asking actually, NBS is just the Instagram names, but so she actually wants to know how do you do this with your husband? Meaning, your husband is your husband in a sense is another child.
Absolutely.
So how do you sort of find your husband's talent?
Right.
And especially when you want to have the
child. I got a time out there. Not another.
Well, Leah, let's get real. I thought we're all the same. We're all like, well,
NTS, whoever it was, we're not. Your husband is your king. He's your rabbi. He's the holy person that God himself picked for you to bring out the best in you, bring out the best in him. And your job is to be as close to him as humanly possible while you are alive on this planet Earth. Your kid is something you're bringing into the world to educate and to teach and to love and all those things, but they're not the same. Just had to say.
Said like a true marriage guru.
I tell you, I had to say that because, okay. No, I know. What a woman said to me, came to me once and said, I feel like I have 5 children. I've got 4 little, and I've got my husband who comes in, what's for dinner? Well, whatever. And, whatever. And I it's the whole concept, mindset has to shift entirely. You know why? Because us as women, we need that man to be like, we have, you know what I'm saying? We need to be able to honor and respect and have this king in front of us. Right. This isn't Leah Richeimer's great idea, and it's anti-feminist. Maybe I'm not an anti-feminist, but it could be politically incorrect what I'm saying. All I know is that 3,000 years ago, when the Torah was given, this is what it said, that this is who a man is for a woman. So if we belittle them, which is going around in much of the world, someone told me that all the movies they put down the father, that there's a whole, I really want to get that. She said she read an article about it. I need that article but anyway.
Yeah, no, 100%. All the even kids, Bernstein Bears, the father was always an idiot. I'm like, how did you
I know. Yeah. Our audience is going to laugh because I do not allow the Bernstein Bears in my home. I do not.
Because of that.
Because of the way they treated their parents. We do not read those books in the Kramer house.
Wow. Okay. Very good.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
No, but I will say, Sarit, right?
Yeah.
I will say that, everything that we do to kind of be the cheering squad for our children, we need to be there for our husbands as well, but in a very real way. my husband actually has a pretty good sense of humor. And we were one time somewhere, actually at his sister's house, and he made a joke and I started laughing. And she turned to me and she said, "When are you going to stop laughing at his jokes?" And I'm like, never. Meaning we want to give them the feeling that we get them and we appreciate them. And so some people are good at the effusive, better than others. But we all know that we can always work on ourselves to really tap in to what our husbands love, what we love talking about, and really just say, that was great.
It's awesome. Okay, let's go on to number 5. Great question.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I hope we answered your question without giving you a hard time about kids are the same.
Right. Okay, so point number 5. Okay, we know that there's.
Sorry, go ahead.
So point number 5, we know that there's a famous expression out there: let a child be a child when he's young, so he can be an adult when he's older. And what that typically means is that let a child be a child and get out all their childness, wild activities and fun and all that, so that he can be an adult and be responsible when he's older. But one of the things that, in talking to different people about this topic, a lot of people were saying, why don't you debunk that? Why don't you say, let a child be a child because he's a child? Let him be that for him. Let him stay in shul as long as he needs to. But if he can't, send him home so that when he can sit, let him sit in shul. Only let him come to shul when he can actually sit there. Don't let him come and jump around because he's a child. He can't necessarily. Some kids can, some kids can't. And you have to do what that child needs. So the other thing is that, some things that, just a few things that, we do, and I know that my parents have done as well. When my son was dating, I asked the girls that I was looking into, I asked her friends, and I looked into many girls, thank God. And I would ask the girl's friends, how would this girl react if maybe theoretically one time everybody would kind of just start dancing in the living room to music? How would she react? Would she roll her eyes? Would she join in? Right? And here's the thing. There is an excitement. When the kids were little, we used to dance on Motzei Shabbos. Now, we do that in our house. We did that as, the Corona house. Everyone knows there was lots of dancing. I've seen it, in my sister-in-law's house as well. It's just fun. When we went on trips, we actually, I used to match the kids' clothing. This way in the airport, when they're running around, somebody doesn't say, "Oh, call child services." They'll say, "Oh, there's your family." That's why I did it. So in other words, we match them with each other so that they can feel a fun childhood. And then, so many times people ask me like, "Oh, what was your teenage years like? Were you jaded?" And I often think, like, I teach high school. I don't know. I never hated my mother in high school. I just didn't. I was just like a happy kid. I was so proud of my mother. I loved her. So like, I don't know this whole, so I'm hoping that my kids, feel the same way. I think they do. I know they do. But like, the point is that to really connect and give them an amazing childhood, and that doesn't cost money, to just have a great time together so that when they're adults, they can really be successful and, a good, successful part of the community.
It's awesome. Hold on a sec. Okay, we're getting in so many questions. We've got to pack them in here because we're running out of time. Okay, go ahead, Sarit.
Okay, so Rachel is asking, what if your spouse is critical of your child and what they're trying to excel in?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a good question. My question back would be, why are they being critical? Because they think they're not good at it? Is the husband a critical person by nature? So that's something that, can be pointed out, like, maybe let's look for the good, or maybe let's go out on a limb and encourage him in a way that maybe is a little bit false, but they'll be successful. Like, I remember the first time that my son, who's 20, he wanted to own a daycare. He wanted to, to open a day camp. And I said to him, really? Like, a day camp, you have to be responsible for children. You have to be organized. And I started like doubting him a little bit. And thank God my husband was there at the time. And he said, okay, mommy and I are going on a walk. This sounds like an amazing idea. We're actually going on a walk. And on our walk, my husband said to me, what are you doing? He wants to do this. And he wants to think about it. So I said, yeah, but it's a responsibility. In any case, when we came back from the walk, he had a notebook. He had a daily plan. He had organized ideas. Fast forward, this is his 3rd year. He has 70 campers already. He is amazing at this day camp. Had I squashed it, he wouldn't be doing this now. And we're so proud of him, but we believed in him. And I want to say that sometimes we do this, but hopefully we have somebody to say, hey, wait a second. Let's maybe believe in him.
It's fantastic. And to answer to this question also, in terms of when you are, the questions that Faige, I was going to say Rebbitzin, whatever.
Now Faige is perfect.
Whatever, that she asked, that you can ask those to your husband. Why are you being critical? What do you
Yes.
know? Are you, you might
Yes.
be, not in front of the kid and not in the time
right,
when you're-
discussions.
Right.
People make fun of us that we go on a walk every Friday night. My neighbor, actually, we were walking in the summertime. We walked twice, Friday night and then before Shalashudas. And my neighbor, one time in this past summer, she said to me, I want to solve the problems you're solving. Like she just sees us always like talking, and because my husband's home over the weekend. So we really make the time to talk. And when, my husband is not a person who talks, directly better. So when he's walking, he'll open up more. So we do walks.
Right, because you're not looking him right in the face. You're kind of
exactly. He doesn't do well when I'm looking right at him in the face. So we take walks and he opens up more then.
Yeah, it's good for the kids too. Okay, last question, and then we're out of time. Okay, go ahead.
Oh my God, this is, by the way, people are literally hearts and stuff. So there's a lot of what's called, but someone is saying that also adding on to that question, that sometimes your husband may be actually seeing something that you're not seeing, because as a mother, we automatically, like the biggest joke that I used to laugh about is we used to go to my girls were in part of this voice lessons program, and then they did a big production. And I'm a very realistic type of mother. So I'd be sitting in the audience and they'd go up there to sing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe we need to pick another talent. Maybe we could do art. So like, maybe the voice lessons is not the way to go. But you had women in the audience who were like kvelling, like literally like, oh, my child's the best voice. And you're thinking, your child sounds like a frog. Like, I don't know.
So I will say
the father is more realistic. He's more like,
so
here's talented in that. So why do you keep spending towards that? So she's saying like, how do you know when you could sort of,
bridge that gap? Yeah.
So here's the thing. Every child thinks they're amazing at everything until somebody tells them they're not. Every child eventually will realize when she's in a choir and she sounds like a frog, when she gets to high school, she's not going to get a solo. And that's okay. Along the way, somebody might help her and say, you know what? Maybe consider song dance instead of choir, or maybe consider something else. In Baltimore, we have a lot of girls in the middle school are in dance. And I'm thinking, and many people think like, really, they're in dance. But then when they come to high school and not all of them get into dance, then it's kind of like the hard reality. So yeah, you have to really talk it out with your spouse, and you have to really be open-minded and say, hey, wait a second, maybe she's not the best at that. My daughter would love to be a teacher one day, and she has other ideas, my 16-year-old. And my husband will many times say, okay, when is she going to work for Kol Ram? Like, is she going to work for Kol Ram? And that's the running joke. And we joke about it. And at some point recently, she said, Ta, I love you, but I'm not going to be working for you. And he kind of knows that, but he makes the joke. So I think that our kids really do know eventually what they're good at and what they're not. And spouses need to talk and communicate with each other and be open-minded about it, because sometimes we are blinded and we say, oh my gosh, that was gorgeous. Or like they come up with the art project and you're like, that's stunning. And then the other spouse says, what is that exactly a picture of?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. All right. This was fantastic. This is like bringing out the best in your child. How can people get in touch with you? You said join your Instagram, and can you tell us what your handle is on Instagram so people can sign up and follow you?
So it's CJ and then underscore FLK underscore Kramer.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I have two at Faige Kramer, but you could also do CJ FLK Kramer.
Okay, fine. And we'll be, Ilana's going to put it on the link below. Okay, this is fantastic. This has been elucidating. And, this is bringing out your best in your kid will also help you in your marriage because you'll be working as a team together.
So as a nod to my father, could we go over the 5 points? Like the Rashi Prakim of the 5 points.
Okay, if you can do it in
just
like
just
5
one
seconds.
line. One line. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
A happy child is a successful child. So here we go. Point number 1, know what your child loves and what they're good at and tap into it. Point number 2, both parents should have a relationship with their child or the two types of different personalities. Don't worry if it's a single parent home. We said that you want to have the 2 types of personalities. Point 3, fair does not mean equal, but at the end of the day, the child should feel like it's fair. Point 4, give a child responsibility, leading this to accountability. And point 5, let a child be a child so that when he's young, so that when he can be an adult when he's older.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you
Phenomenal.
so much. It was phenomenal. This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Here's the thing, ladies. If you don't subscribe, you may miss out and you're going to miss some great content. So you need to either like us or follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, on Torah Anytime, on YouTube, or go right to our website, www.ladiestalkshow.com, and fill in a subscription button. And then you'll get every week an update on exactly what's happening. And if you do that, oh, by the way, if you subscribe on our website, you also get 10 tips to have a great relationship. Don't miss it. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot.